Welcome to Real Estate 360 with real estate expert Kenn Renner. We sit down again. It seems like every month when we get together, it's a little bit different, but going the same direction. Does that sound right?
Well, Sandy, one thing that's guaranteed is change, right?
Well, that's true. That, death, and taxes and change, right?
Change.
Yeah.
You got to either roll with the punches or get left behind.
Right. But you've had a pretty good, you have a lot of vision. You're one of those people that can kind of see over the horizon or around the corner of what's coming. And that's what's very valuable about this video, this podcast, is letting people know what to expect. You've been right a lot.
Well, thank you. This is our 4th year now coming up. So, I've been, I think we went back through all the podcasts. I would be probably about 95% right on the predictions.
I always remember something you said once. You was like, when you read about it in the newspaper, it's too late.
Yeah, well, we are boots on the ground here. So you have realtors, brokers that are on the ground. We see what's coming, and then it makes the news later on.
Right.
But what I appreciate you on that, being a visionary, and I've kind of, I am a strategist, but I also do what I can to see over the horizon, see what's coming. My dad, way back in the day, taught me about the power of cycles, real estate cycles, and how they work and ebb and flow. And so you can really see in the long term the cycles that are going, but then there's always a disruption. So you got to roll with the punches with the disruption. So the pandemic was obviously a
pretty big one.
Yeah. But in 2017 I started going in the Bay Area. Actually, I had done that 20 years earlier too. But in 17, I said I knew that we were having an equity imbalance between Bay Area and Austin again, and so I was getting people lined up. Hey, you should check this place out. This is going to be a really good place to invest and all that. Sure enough, 2020 hit, and everything hit the fan, and I happened to be perfectly positioned. And got blessed with, 350 home sales since then, 100 million in the last 3 years. So it's been more than I would have ever expected. Just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and was able to get my clients to follow what I was doing. It's a leap to buy a house sight unseen 1,500 miles away, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. But people, it's happening probably more now than ever.
Oh, and see, it forced everybody to do video and Zoom and all the stuff that we've resisted. Back in the day, people didn't want to get off their fax. Realtors didn't want to get off their fax machines. Just scan. They didn't want to get off their beepers for the cell phone.
In the same way on our side of the business, on the lending side of the business, is we don't take an application in person ever anymore.
And I missed that.
Yeah. There's something to be said for it.
There was that one time we could get together, or 2 times you get together with your client, because I was in the mortgage business for many years, and so it was the only time we really got face to face. And when you're in the real estate space, you're much more in front of them all the time.
Right.
So it was the only time we could really build rapport and get to know people. And now it's like, here's the link, fill out your application.
Yeah, and then we'll get it, and then we'll let you know.
Well, I hope it goes through.
Right. True.
So
are we going to take a look at the numbers?
Yeah, we are. I just wanted to, I wanted to bring up a couple things, that I'm celebrating here, and is the fact that I've been here in Austin now for 30 years, and we're just talking before the show that I just celebrated my 30th anniversary down in Mexico with my wife. 30 years. That's 3 decades.
Pretty darn good.
So I moved here in but at the same time that we got married. And so we moved here from California. Don't forgive me.
I won't shoot you.
It wasn't my fault. But we moved here for lifestyle and to raise our kids in a better atmosphere. And so, that's still a reason why a lot of people, and the politics weren't as bad back then in California as they are now, but see a lot of people still coming here. And that's why we got our little Elon Musk there. I had to bring this up because, it still goes back a couple of years ago. It says Elon Musk predicts that Austin, Texas will be the biggest boom town that America has ever seen in 50 years. And he
also knew he was moving his headquarters here. You know what I mean?
It was about that time. Yeah. And so, but he also was able to write checks for 2,500 acres here for his big mega facility. And now they bought 700 or 800 acres down at Bastrop, down Southeast Metro. That's where they're gonna put the SpaceX for building all the satellites, and then also the Boring Company is what I understand. So we're actually liking Bastrop a lot with what's going on. The toll road's going through there. It's almost finished. Plus,
they actually finished that. They just made TxDOT just made a big deal about it at that intersection east of the airport.
Yeah,
it's done. It's like 7 bridges, and for those of those that have been here a long time, it doesn't look anything like it used to.
Oh, no. Yeah, Del Valley and all that.
Yeah.
So now you can get from Bastrop to Tesla in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Or Bastrop to the airport in 20 minutes with no stoplights. So, so I have a lot to celebrate. 30 years anniversary of Austin, 40 years in the real estate business. I got my first license when I was 19 years old. Bought my first house when I was 19 years old. And then 60 years on the planet. So I'll be turning 60 here. So
the numbers are lining up.
The numbers don't lie.
Yeah, they're stubborn.
We talked about that. So let's get to the numbers real quick. So interesting stats here. I got the City of Austin stats for August, which is the newest that we have from the Board of Realtors. And right now we're looking at $541,000 is the median price in August for a home in City of Austin. And guess what? That's almost exactly what it was in 2022. So people like going, oh, Austin's crashed. It's got no. We're a year from when the market started changing, and here we are back to where we were last year. And it's a couple things that we have going on. Lack of supply. People are almost mortgage locked because they've got their low interest rates, and then affordability. And we're going to talk about affordability, not only for home buyers here in Austin, but what they're doing about affordability and what builders are doing about affordability. And so I'm going to have to talk fast because we've got a lot of stuff to cover. But so the elephant in the room right now is interest rates, and we all know that. Right? So what's our rates on 30-year fixed right now for top
7.25%?
7.25%. Lovely. I did mine at 7%. How about that? Okay. So on a $541,000 house with 20% down, the loan balance be $432 at 70% or 7% interest rate. That would be $2,874 a month, principal and interest. Mm-hmm. So that's a median price house, typical purchase in here. Now, in a year and a half ago, we were looking at 3.5%, which is doubled, right? So that same payment would be $1,939 back in 2022. So it was almost $1,000 a month more for the same house.
That stings.
It does, and that's why people are like, "Well, wait a minute. Why should I buy if is the rate's going to keep going up? Am I ever going to be able to refinance?" Mm-hmm. But I kind of did a little reverse engineering of what that $2,874 payment would have bought you in 2022. It would have afforded a $640,000 loan. So we've almost lost $200,000 in buying power for the fact that the rates doubled. And that's putting a lot of people on hold on their buying plans. So we've noticed that we've seen a lot of a pullback. Like in my neighborhood, Santa Rita Ranch, open houses are really dry. We're holding one every weekend. We know what's going on. In fact, our whole group of realtors got together. A dozen of us put out open houses and then ice cream trucks and all that kind of stuff. Very slow. And the builders are still doing really good because we'll talk about that because they're buying the interest rates down to bring it back to pre-pandemic interest rates. Right. So hard to compete. But I have this chart here that I think is really important. It's kind of seeing why rental market is going to do so well, and also for our investors why the rental market is going to do so well for exactly what we're talking about. This is nationwide, this chart that you see here with the difference between buying versus renting. And it used to be that and you can see only a couple of years ago, it was better and cheaper to buy and own than it was. Rates were so low than it was to rent. We've seen that flip-flop now. And so our cost of rent on this particular chart is $1,845 is the cost of current rent. That's typical of our San Antonio, New Braunfels type of rents. That same cost to buy and on top of a down payment and all that is going to be $2,697. So to buy the same house in the same neighborhood, the resale house it's going to cost $1,000 or $900 more than renting that same house.
Right.
So that becomes an issue for resales. And so, but it also is really good for landlords because we still have a housing shortage. Right. And people are going to look at this. Affordability is the biggest issue we have right now, supply and affordability. And they're going to say, I'll just wait. I'm going to rent. In fact, I'll rent for a couple of years. I actually had one down in Seguin where the guy said, I own my house free and clear, but I can't make the taxes right now. I'm running low. We ended up buying it as an investment property and leasing it back to him for a year. Mm-hmm. So win-win situation. So that's kind of what we're looking at is this difference between renting and owning has gotten quite a bit. And so we're going to see people are going to probably choose to do more renting until they really, really want to secure. The millennials are ready to buy, but they're waiting on the interest rates. Okay, so we talked about this a while back, and it's still here. So it's making national news, which 6 months ago was news between me and Sandy, right? It was it was the builder incentives. In other words, the builders are now buying all the interest rates down back to where they were pandemic or pre-pandemic. We're looking at interest rates on 30-year fixed from the builders at 5.25, 4.99, even as low as like 3.99 on a 1.0 buy down, and that is really. The mortgage, what they're doing is they are funding the mortgage on the back end. They buy blocks of money from Wall Street, from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. They reserve blocks of money at a particular interest rate at a particular cost. And so they're able to provide their clients with 4.5%, 5.5% interest rate, including even in some communities, investors, like I do a lot of investors, are getting 5.5%, 5.25% interest rate with no points. And they'll even pay closing costs on top of that. So it's pretty, it's a pretty ingenious way for them to solve the interest rate problem. And so we have two houses sitting next to each other. One is a resale, same builder, same model. They're going to pay 7.5%. We know what the results are. But if you're looking down at the same house with the builder on the same street, you're looking at 5.5%, 5.25%, even 4.99%. Wow. So it's hard to compete with that. I try to tell my sellers, you have to realize that affordability is the issue here, and you've got to hopefully compete with that. And we've had conversations saying instead of reducing the price a bunch, because that doesn't affect the payment as much, let's offer them the same incentives. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, with investors, resellers, and normal builders that don't have NFC, National Forward Commitment money, they'll only allow 2% towards closing costs. So in a non-owner occupied purchase, a rental purchase, the 2 points that you would have paid me is only going to buy 7.5%. Mm-hmm. Whereas what they've done is they've done the back end with 6 or 8 points on the back end on the purchase. The builder then pays the lender, goes behind the scenes, behind the veil, so it doesn't show up on the closing statement, and that buys the interest rate down to 5.25%, 5.5%. Now, once they catch on to that, it might change, and that's why I'm trying to get my clients to get as much as you can while you can, because the article here, mortgage rate buydowns by home builders are now all the rage to prop up sales, lowering the effective house prices in a big way. And it is when you give incentives, as you know, that actually effectively lowers the price of the house. Right. And the problem we're running into is appraisers have not caught up to this yet.
They're going to. I mean, they're going to.
They're going to. Yeah. So, as we got the DR Horton has just pulled this off. I got this off my email today. 3.9910 buy down, which means it's bought to 3.9 the first year and then 4.99 for the rest of the duration. That's really, really exciting, and especially with the few pockets of where our investors are allowed to get that same money. It brings me right back into we're helping a lot of investors get back into the game with positive cash flow, just like it was back in the old days. So that being said, another way to fight to affordability is to move to or get closer to or move to an area that's more affordable. And so we've been studying this, and Austinites are, this article you see there is Austinites are hightailing it to San Antonio. And we'll go over those numbers, why San Antonio is so much cheaper, and what the difference is in the cost of living here towards the end of this the stats. But I wanted to share with my listeners is there was a really good PBS special came out last month. You can just dial in San Antonio, Austin, the next mega metro, or look at the links on my YouTube down at the bottom, and you can actually watch the video it's really, really thorough, talking about how San Antonio, the 7th largest city in the nation, Austin being the 10th largest city in the nation, will be merging together, calling it a mega metro, kind of like Metroplex up in Dallas-Fort Worth. It's going to be a mega metro in San Antonio in between. Now, there's a lot of talk about the fact that San Antonio's a lot cheaper. It's a lot more spread out. It's bigger, but it's also it's not as chic as Austin. Austin's got a lot of So I would say, but there are some great suburbs that are amazing. Bull Verde, Bernie, New Braunfels, all these areas that are these small towns that are outside. They're quaint, still small town living, but you're still 20, 30 minutes to the downtown area. So, it's we're seeing that together, and it's great. The PBS, I encourage you to watch it because it was both mayors or former mayors, Cisneros and whatever the guy in Austin was. They are
Watson.
Yeah, Watson, Kirk Watson. They're speaking on it and talking about their take on what's going to happen. But they are going to merge together.
Kind of an indicator, too, of a lot of cities, too. I don't know if you saw the news, but San Antonio just got their first nonstop flight to Europe.
Yeah.
You can now fly nonstop from San Antonio to Frankfurt. And I've always kind of looked at that as that's a sign of things to come.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when what started happening in Austin, now it's happening in San Antonio. More and more flights just because there's more people.
And they've been talking about the commuter train between Austin and San Antonio for years. So, you know, that's a big deal. And they talk about some really good things. It's going to happen. The population,
it's a matter of when.
It's going to double. It's going to be 8 million people that are going to be here in these two metros within 10 years. So that's a huge population. They got to live somewhere. And if you get 5.25% interest rate and you get a couple $100 positive and they're paying off that loan balance, as our investors do, you're in good shape. But this one I dug up just before I came down, and this is a really interesting. In 2023, they compared the city cost of living between San Antonio and Austin. It's cheaper to live in Austin. Is it cheaper to live in Austin or San Antonio? Austin is 44.1% more expensive than San Antonio.
I believe it.
So, and the biggest driver of that is the housing prices. So we're looking at Austin housing costs 150% more, is more expensive than San Antonio. So
150?
150.3% more expensive than San Antonio. So, so it's 50% more of what it's going to cost to buy the same house down there. And they're really only about an hour apart. I mean, the city limits are really an hour apart. So in between there is where we're focusing a lot because that's where you get the best of both worlds. You can be in San Antonio, San Marcos, you can be either way.
New Braunfels is a hot new market.
New Braunfels is one of the hottest markets in the nation, always has been. Georgetown was the fastest growing city in the nation last year, and that's our hometown. And that's what I compare when people understand Georgetown, Austin, because if they've been here, they know that it's a quaint city. It's close by, but it's still a small town. Same thing with New Braunfels and that area, and Seguin, Bernie, I love Bulverde. A little more expensive, but beautiful hill country, and mega mansions out there too. But looking at the median home cost, according to this article, San Antonio is $254. Austin's $577. The national average is $338. So that's pretty interesting that San Antonio is substantially lower than the national average, and Austin is substantially higher than the national average, and that still has a lot to do with the recent pandemic boom. But I'm actually seeing, like I said, we're going to probably see, especially in the resale market, some pain points coming up. So you got, as a real estate professional, to prepare our sellers for this seasonal slowdown as we move into the winter time. If you're serious about selling, then you have to really get serious about staging, pricing, incentives, and flexibility, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more of our clients get involved in this megaplex that is going to, if you imagine, I'm going to the Bay Area next month on October 28th. I'll be speaking at the largest meetup for investors in the Bay Area. It's called Real Estate Moguls of the Bay Area Real Estate Moguls. A lot of syndicators, a lot of people, a lot of accredited type investors. They're looking for a place to diversify and park their money. And so I think with this low interest rate and these pockets of opportunities, I'm really going to be able to help them out. But I'm going to talk in that presentation about what it was like. The house that I was born in was in San Mateo, which is right where I'm going. It was my dad bought it in 1963 for $17,000. And the house is now worth about almost $1.9 million. I just talk about that, but I thought to myself, what if my dad had started buying houses in San Mateo and just bought one a year? So from 63 to 73, bought one a year. Could you imagine what kind of net worth that would be? I mean, if they're each worth $2 million now, so that's pretty easy. That'd be $20 million.
Yeah,
now, I could probably retire on that. I'm not saying that's my peak, but that's close enough. So I just encourage, that's one of the things our clients are doing, buying multiple properties, getting as much as they can while rates are still relatively low as far as the builders are concerned. And then one house a year or two houses. We have one guy just bought 3 houses, one after the other, because his wife says, I feel this market's it's going to change. So great place to park your money, great place to watch it grow, let the loan pay itself, let the tenants pay the loan off, and then give it to your kids tax tax-free when the time comes.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's all about legacy, bro.
Yeah, exactly. It really is.
All right, Sandy, thank you for your time.
You bet. Good seeing you, Ken.
Good to see you.
Always a pleasure.
All right, thanks, Sandy.